everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are thrilled to be here this morning at Mercado Central. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and especially thank Mariano Rivera for hosting us once again here at the market. We're thrilled to be here and excited for this conversation that's coming ahead of us today. We're here for basically two reasons. One is to recognize the extraordinary work that our Assistant Commissioner Anissa Haji Mumin has done for our and to welcome our new Assistant Commissioner, Mohammed. And then secondly, we're going to have a great conversation with an amazing panel here as part of our Summer of Jobs campaign. It's a campaign that we have begun over the last 3 months to highlight all the amazing opportunity in Minnesota's economy and the labor pools that a lot of businesses, we think, overlook at their own peril in one of the tightest labor markets we've ever had in Minnesota. But to get started, I want to make some introductions of who's with us here today and set the tone for our conversation. First, of course, we have Assistant Commissioner Haji Mumin, incoming Assistant Commissioner Mohammed. I'm also joined up here by some panelists who we'll hear from in a moment. Edmundo Lijo, who is the Assistant City Attorney in the St. Paul City Attorney's Office. Michelle Rivero, who is the Director of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs in Minneapolis. We have Ekta Prakash, who is the CEO of CAPI. And we have Florence Wanda, who is with us as the founder and CEO of Lighthouse Business and Tax Solutions. So we've got a great panel you're going to hear from. Also in the room today, we have some additional folks from our team at DEED. We have Mark Majors, our Deputy Commissioner of Workforce Development. Let's give it up for Mark. Mark oversees our Office of Public Engagement, and today we have Devin Bowdry, our Interim Director of the Office of Public Engagement. Where's Devin? There he is. And also Nima Hussain, who works on public engagement at DEED as well. Where's Nima? There we go. And we're also thrilled to be joined today by Migdalia Loyola, who all of you know runs out the and Nico Bauer from her team as well, who is engaging as well. Oh, and Hannah as well. Hannah, I didn't see Hannah's here too. Hey, Hannah, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. And yes, and Linda Sloan, who runs our ethnic council for, there we go, Linda, good to see you. From African Heritage, sorry, I got the title wrong. I'm going to hand to Anissa to do a few more introductions.
And we've gotten Julie Cameron too, from the Asian Pacific Minnesota.
Thank you. And we'll hear from a moment from Representative Sandra Feist, who's with us as well today. She's been a big champion of this work. We'll give her the mic in a moment to say a few words. But to get us started, I just want to take a moment to thank Assistant Commissioner Haji Mumin for her work in this office. You know, she came on board DEED a little over 2 years ago to start a new effort in our state. Frankly, an effort that was long overdue, to create an office at our department here at DEED, focused on outreach and engagement to the immigrant community in Minnesota. And I say a long time coming because it has been decades and decades of contributions from immigrants in our state that have really powered Minnesota's economic growth. Without immigrants in our state, we simply would not be growing as we are. Our population would actually be declining at a precipitous rate if it weren't for immigrants and immigrant leaders like all of you. Anissa came in to really build a new effort for us at DEED on that front and in the middle of a global pandemic. And to come in at that unique juncture in our state's history and provide not only the foundation for a new office, but also just triage, essentially chaos and crisis across multiple fronts, to build an outreach effort that works for immigrants and refugees is something that we in Minnesota will always be grateful for. As you know, Anissa has left for Pennsylvania, their gain, our loss. But we are so thrilled that she has been here to get this effort off the ground. Not only has she done work to do outreach in the community from DEED, but she has also helped galvanize efforts inside of state government, which, you know, state government's pretty big. Being able to do that across a lot of different agencies is a bigger task than you might think. And we're just so proud of that work, so happy to celebrate her. And before I turn it to Anissa to say a few words, I want to invite Migdalia Loyola to come up, and I believe we have a special presentation, or Nico, I guess, is going to, you'll tag team it. A special presentation on behalf of the Governor's Office for the Assistant Commissioner.
So this is just a small token of our esteem to recognize all of your hard work, both in community and within state government. No piece of paper can really articulate all the gratitude that we have for you and your work, but please, this is something that you can take with you to remember all that you've accomplished and the legacy that you've sought to start here, and we'll just know that we'll continue your good work in the years to come. So thank you for everything.
Well, thank you for that, and I guess without further ado, Anissa, we'll hand you the mic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you, Nico and Migdalia and everyone in here. I wanted to take a moment to kind of contain my emotion. It's okay to cry. Thank you so much. I'm someone that tells everyone not to be afraid to be yourself and to be authentic, to cry and to be emotional. But I want to be mindful of the time I have and of course be respectful of you honoring us today coming here. This job wasn't easy and it's not going to be easy. I remember when I moved from, my family and I moved from Maryland 20 plus years ago. There were no Mercado Central, there were no businesses here. And look at it today. We're meeting here, talking about and discussing about immigrant and refugee inclusion. I would say that's a big deal. And the state of Minnesota is a place where immigrants and refugees make home, where they raise their children. And I really wanted to create that space and our voices to be reflected in what's happening in our state system. That our state leaders can hear directly from us. And so when I joined the Department of Employment and Economic Development, the first thing that came to my mind was, if we do not have conversation with the community, how do we really then advocate on their behalf? And that's why I had established the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Forum. And I wasn't alone in doing that. The original idea was from Michelle Rivero and Edmundo Lijo. And they said, we don't have a space, a platform that the community comes together to talk about their issues. And that's what we did. Following then the city level platform where immigrants and refugees come together bi-weekly, Michelle Rivero and Edmundo Lijo are leading these conversations. And it started with only 35 people to hundreds of people interested in knowing the topics we cover at the platform, bringing questions, but also concerns to share with the governor's office, to share with the state leaders. So then the next thing was that now that we have engaged with the community, how do we bring that conversation and to balance with what's happening with the state leaders? And that's when we established the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Council. It's a interagency coordination efforts, senior leaders, powerful commissioners interested in seeing the community's voice being heard. Senior leaders are part of this conversation. And the good thing is that we have done a great job in bringing the proposal to establish an Office of New Americans for our state. But it's life, right? We work hard, we show up, and if it doesn't happen, we try again. And despite me leaving the state, although I will still be with you in spirits, that's why Abdul will carry on the work and keep the momentum going. We have over 19,000 business owners in the community. We are contributing over $4.8 billion a year in profits. We have over 487,000 immigrants and refugees, where 51% of them are citizens. The opportunities are vast, but the data also shows we're losing $5.1 billion by not utilizing our talents. You'd be surprised to see somebody who has double master's or PhD, but getting paid $15 an hour. That's loss for the community, loss for that individual who's talented, but also for our state's economy. And this time is very critical that we connect our immigrant job seekers and employers. And I want you to be part of those conversations too, because when the community is part of the conversation, state leaders and even legislators will definitely do the right job, because we want to rely on them. But in order to do that, we have to do our part. I've been to numerous conversations and roundtables where the majority of the community was missing. Here's a simple analogy. As a mother and wife and a community member, if I'm asking a sister to come and take care of my house when I'm actually healthy and able-bodied, is that possible? That's absurd, right? So how can the community get their voices heard if they're not showing up, if they're not speaking up, if they're not unifying their efforts? State leaders can do so much, so are the legislators. But it's your voice, it's your ideas that will drive the change. And without your voice, it's going to be very difficult to do so. Abdul has a lot of support. He's got Mark Majors as his supervisor. He's got Commissioner Grove that believes in this and in support of this. We have Representative Sandra Feist here with us that has so much advocated for the community. We have Michelle Rivero and Edmundo on the local levels. We are in good hands. I've been to Pennsylvania to find a house in where I'm going to be moving to. None of the things happening here and the efforts that exist here do not exist there. And they're already talking about how do we emulate Minnesota and what they're doing, which is a good thing. But that shows while we're ahead of the game, we also want to do a good job. The governor's office holds different meetings for the community to talk about their issues, to collect ideas about the budget for 2023. We're doing the same thing. Soon, there will be community calls that Devin will be leading, and NEMA. There will be discussions about the budget and how the community's voice can be included and incorporated into what we're trying to establish at this stage. But I tell you, we're immigrants, but we're resilient and we're determined to make a better life here in the United States. I encourage you to work and partner with Abdul. Reach out to him, bug him all you can. He's somebody ready and prepared to take on this challenge. But also, do not be afraid to speak up. Commissioner Groff once said, you know what, call me in any platforms you're holding. I want to talk to the community. If you got willing leaders, then you've got to be willing community members that will come forward and work with us all so we can realize the Office of New Americans. Because we have DACA, we have people that are still not legally documented but still contributing to our economy. There's a lot of work that needs to happen and take place in regards to immigration and reforms, but the state alone cannot do that. So the community and the state leaders and legislators have to work together to also bring our voices beyond the state level to the federal level. Heck, we have Biden administration that's willing to work with us to make a difference more than before. You've seen the student loan debt cancellation for up to $20,000. A lot of immigrants go to school, and collect a lot of debts by the time they graduate, and they may not get the employment they deserve. There are a lot of diversity and inclusive conversations that needs to happen. A lot of employers are coming forward and saying, how can we work with the job seekers and the immigrants and refugee communities? We know they're talented and we want to collaborate with them. A lot of corporations are talking about making change. Let's take advantage of that and show up, because I know that where we come from, we don't trust the government. But that shouldn't be the case here. We should put our trust in the government, but also hold them accountable. And we should show up and do our part. Because if you're not showing up, I'm not sure if I will have a conversation with you. It's just reality. It's just a fact. Hold us accountable, and so we can hold you accountable, and together we can build a big Minnesota community and realizing the One Minnesota vision. Thank you so much. And I want to say one more thing before I hand over the mic to Abdul, who'll be saying his remarks. You know, we think a lot of people, a lot of times that because of titles and our positions, that we know everything. That we are ridiculed if we make a mistake. But that shouldn't be the case. Leadership is about being humble. It's about admitting our mistakes. It's about saying, I'm not sure what to do here, can you show me? And if you see that, please support anyone that's struggling, because they are there for you. They are working for you. And if we don't guide each other, I'm not sure if we can deliver effectively. Leadership is about being wise and making mistakes and learning lessons from our mistakes. Without that, it's really very difficult. And it's very high time for us to be authentic, for us to be ourselves, for us to really speak from our hearts, but also take actions based on what we say, because it's our word. And we want you to hold us accountable because of what we say to you that we're going to do. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Anissa. That was eloquent as usual, and we're just blessed to have you here and excited to hear even more from you today. I want to turn over to our new temporary assistant commissioner, Abdul Mohammed, to remind everyone here our strategy, because of course Anissa's leaving meant we want to make sure that the work continued, despite the fact she's going to Pennsylvania. We have a temporary assistant commissioner, Abdul Mohammed, who's going to take the reins for the rest of this year. And then, God willing, when Governor Walz is your next governor for his second term, we're going to reinvest in this office. So excited about that, and excited to welcome Assistant Commissioner Mohammed to the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up today. It is really an honor to celebrate with you about what this office can do. Denise has done a lot of work in this office, and I'll just get right into it. I think we don't have much time today, but I want to thank everyone who showed up, from Senator to Commissioner Grove to the council leaders from the governor's office. Even Mark is here today, community elder. That's
I have to be here.
Appreciate everyone. And thanks to our host, Ms. Alice and Joel. This is the first time I've been here, and I think I was missing out. I need to be here more. Thank you so much for showing up. So I want to take a moment to appreciate Anissa. She's just mentioned you've moved to Philadelphia when?
It's
Pennsylvania. Lancaster. About a couple of months ago, and she already knows what's happening on the ground, that they don't have resources that we have here. Someone who has been having a keen eye on community inclusion and what the community deserves to be. So thank you so much. I know you will make an impact wherever you go. Much appreciated. And thanks to Commissioner Grove for the leadership. Mark, this office. I want to talk about the future of this office. And Mr. has talked about what this office has done, what we can do, and has left us with some advices. Looking at this, the work does not stop. I'll leave you with a story. I met the Somali Medical Association. They just got a grant from DEEP that helps retrain doctors who've done their degrees overseas so that we can include them into the workforce. And he was just telling us that even after we do the trainings, we're having a problem with the residents that we have with the network of hospitals. This shows that DEED can do so much, give grants, but we need an office like this to listen to the community, to know what are the issues, so that what DEED has done, we can always have a follow-up. We can always have programs that are coming to support the programs that we have already done. The work does not get stopped. And I have the honor of continuing to listen to the communities and do this work. I myself an immigrant, I came here 8 years ago. I didn't even know how to use my master's degree that I got from there to integrate back into the community. I started with a call center, and everyone does that. Whenever you immigrate here, you have a story. Every immigrant, every refugee has a story here. When you start, you get to learn from the community. You come to places like this, social places like this mall. You listen to the people. And now we have an office that you can always, that will host forums that you can come to. So we need this office to continue. I'm glad that Commissioner Grove has highlighted that. The other reason we are here today is to highlight the summer of jobs. We have a lot of companies that want to hire immigrants and refugees. And some of the challenges we will hear from the CEO here is integrating the community into the workforce while using the skills that they've acquired overseas. And this is part of the strategy that DEED has under the leadership of Commissioner Grove and Mark. And I'm glad that this work is continuing. I don't know, we don't have much time. I could continue all day, but I want to turn over the mic. Thank you so much. I have an honor to continue this work, and hopefully we will continue working with all the stakeholders, the council members, the governor's office, the leadership, the elected officials, and everyone that is part of the community. We say, go on up.
Thank you, Abdul. And as you all know, Abdul has spent many years in our trade office representing Minnesota around the world. So just excited for that global perspective that he's going to bring. So before we dive into the panel conversation here, I did want to take a moment to hand the microphone to Representative Feist. You know, we fought collectively as advocates and leaders in state government for this office a lot last session. And as Anissa and I went into negotiations to hammer out a budget up in St. Paul, we said that the establishment of this office was our one kind of go, no-go thing. Either this office would be in the budget or we would walk away. And successfully, we landed this office's establishment into the jobs package. Unfortunately, as you all know, the entire sort of budget unraveled at the last minute. But I did want this community to know that we felt going in that of all the things on our list, the establishment of this office was the one thing that we were not going to give on, that we were going to say, it's this office or bust. And that was successful. And I want to thank Anissa for her leadership on that front. But I also want to thank our legislators. And there's many that helped us on that front, but I think one in particular stands out as Representative Feist, who's both day job and public service job involves advocating for this community. And so, Representative, I want to first of all just have a round of applause for your hard work for this office. And then ask you to share some thoughts with the group.
Well, first I'm going to trip and fall. Lastly. Thank you so much. I am really excited to be here today. Very, very grateful for Governor Walz and Commissioner Grove's support of this office and of the immigrant and refugee community in Minnesota. I am an immigration attorney, and after 4 years as an immigration attorney under the Trump administration, I was feeling really angry and really powerless. And I decided to run for office when there was an open seat in my district because at the top of my list was I wanted to serve the immigrant community in Minnesota in a way that was tangible and meaningful because I was not succeeding on that immigration reform front. So I wasn't sure exactly what that would look like. And it's interesting now that I just finished my first term and I'm now running for re-election. But when I was doing my first term, I had a lot of value statements, like I want to help immigrants. And I talked with a lot of first-time candidates who say the same thing, which is very exciting. But now I can say Anissa rocks. There is an Office of New Americans. There are very specific things that we are doing already to support immigrant entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals. And I am so impressed and excited by this work. We are going to miss you so much, Anissa. But super excited to work with Abdul. I was going to reach out with you as soon as you were official because I definitely want to meet. I want to know how I can support you. As I said, my first and foremost goal as a state legislator is to support the immigrant and refugee communities in Minnesota. So I hope you will all reach out to me if there's something that I can do to support this work and to support all of you in your important and amazing work. So thank you so much. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Representative. Let's dive into our conversation with our esteemed panelists here. Again, this is part of our campaign focused on the Summer of Jobs. And what I think many of you know is that Minnesota has the lowest unemployment rate in recorded history in our state right now. We also have the tightest labor market in recorded history in our state right now. That means for every one job seeker, there are 3.7 open jobs in our state. So we have spent a lot of time this summer in community across the state helping employers find opportunity in markets they might not usually look, and also helping people see job opportunities they might not know are there. And we've been really looking forward to this event because I think the immigrant community in particular is full of opportunity, and it is a labor pool that is not, you might say, optimized in our economy today, as Anissa spoke to earlier. Just to put it into perspective, over the last 10 years, we've added over 81,000 new Americans to Minnesota's workforce. That's over 50% of all the new workers we've added to our state in the last 10 years. And this workforce is younger, it has higher rates of participation in our market. That's important in a state that is aging quickly. We have a lot of Minnesotans who are aging into retirement faster than most states. If we aren't bringing in new immigrants and putting them to work at their highest skill levels, we're not optimizing the future growth of Minnesota's economy. And as you all know, immigrants bring so much to the workplace and to our businesses across Minnesota. And so this is the focus of our Summer of Jobs campaign, to highlight opportunities in different labor pools. And no better way for us to learn here at DEED what the community thinks than by asking them directly. So I'm going to start our conversation by doing just a quick rapid fire round before we get into some of the specifics. We'll start with Ekta and move on down this way. In 2 or 3 sentences, if you could each just share from your perspective, what immigrants mean to Minnesota's economy.
Hello everyone, this is Ekta Prakash from Cafe USA, and I came to this country 21 years ago. You know, I had a double master's, but my first paycheck was $7.50. So, you know, that means where I started my journey, it took me 21 years to come to a leadership role. But as, you know, commissioner and my sister Anissa, I call her sister, she said, you need to be persistent and resilient, and that's what is so important for our economy, that we make such a difference. We bring diversity as an immigrants and refugees. We play a very important role, and they talked about the numbers. I'll talk about stories like, you know, in the economy, in the ecosystem, you know, that it makes our, you know, state, our country beautiful. You know, this country was built by refugees and immigrants, and I think that's very important. And when we talk about diversity, I think it has to start from everywhere. And so our organization, and we have many multiple grants from DEED, is, you know, we have 50 staff, and we speak 20 different languages, and I think that makes us so unique, that we want to make sure we are not only representing refugees, immigrants, but other BIPOC communities, and they are a very important part of the system.
Thank you. I don't know if I can follow up on that. It was wonderful, Ekta. So in a couple of sentences, I guess I'll just share that I am the daughter of immigrants to the United States from Colombia and Italy. And without their immigration journey, I wouldn't exist. And I wouldn't have the pleasure and the honor of helping to welcome immigrants and refugees to the city of Minneapolis. So I believe that one of the most important contributions of immigrants and refugees to the city is their presence, and to the state of Minnesota is their presence, their decision to come to our state and live their lives here, have jobs, yes, start families, yes, and contribute to the fabric of our state and their existence as fellow humans.
Well, thank you so much. I think, Michelle, what you speak to, and Ekta, it's very important. We go through a lot, but we also look forward to better life. And a lot of people say, well, why are immigrants that are coming from very warm, all-year countries coming to Minnesota? Because we know the winter is brutal. But I'm somebody, despite coming from Somalia, I enjoy and I'm more active in the winter time. Isn't that weird? So, but that shows how much we have come to love this state. And thankfully, we now have administration. We have now a lot of leaders interested in uplifting our voice. This is the moment to take advantage of. And I feel like the pandemic had also taught a lot of companies to say, you know what? What's going on? Where are the job seekers? And with all these jobs open, we definitely could do a good job and see our degreed immigrants get the jobs they deserve. That leads to creating that sustainable wage income that will help communities build wealth and, eliminate poverty, homelessness, unemployment or underemployment. And I hope that you can be part of that, because I know with all the signatures you sent, with all the letters of support, without those, I don't think that my job would have really happened. I don't think it would have been possible. I don't think Commissioner Grove would be, working with the legislators in the middle of the night, advocating for own office. So I really am grateful, and it warms my heart that you've been here 21 years, but now you're leading one of the prominent community-based organizations advocating for people not to go through the same barriers that you have faced. Double masters?
I'll take a moment to answer my own question. I was just in San Diego last week with my father-in-law, who is a Thai immigrant, moved here in his early 30s, and met my mother-in-law, also a Thai immigrant, who moved here to become a nurse in her early 30s. They started a chiropractic business in Chicago, moved it to San Diego. They had my wife, Mary, and they built a business and a family for themselves. Mary now lives here in Minnesota, second generation, and she invests in startup companies here that are building Minnesota businesses and helping grow our economy. So I think really what immigrants mean to me for Minnesota is opportunity and creating opportunity.
Thank you. I would echo that. Immigrants, refugees in this state mean opportunity. In one of the calls we were, and I think it was Commissioner Group that highlighted, the labor participation rate for immigrants is higher than other communities. So there's more engagement, more participation from the immigrant communities into the labor force that is higher than in other communities. This means opportunity to take new innovations into the economy, to bring new ways of doing things into the economy. So this opportunity that always exists with people coming into another economy. I mean, sometimes there might be a few other issues, and that is what immigrant and communities will always share with any other community that has been here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Florence Wanda. I've been in this country since 1982. Came as an immigrant, college bound, and I had all the degrees in the world, all the way to a master's degree in tax law, went to law school. But after graduating from law school, I still couldn't find a job that gives me the same opportunity as my classmates, which are not immigrants. So I was the only immigrant in my class, in my law school class. So that really sent a shock wave into my spine, and that's when I began to think. But let me answer your question, Commissioner Grove. Immigrants are resilient. The immigrant population in Minnesota brings diversity, not the diversity of color, but the diversity of hard work, the diversity of always showing up, the diversity of not giving up. And I'm so proud of the immigrant community in Minnesota because they don't give up. I remember years ago when the Somalian immigration started, when they had war in their country, there was a mayor in this city, Pratt, was that her name? When every city was thinking about how do we bring everybody here, she said yes, let them come. And why? And when they came, they worked so hard, the Somalian community worked so hard in this Minnesota, and Minnesota began to see their economy going up. And because of that, all other immigrants began to shift into Minnesota. I know that story because I said I want to go to Minnesota because that's where the jobs are. And so that was my journey into Minnesota. It is true, but it's still not good enough. I've worked so hard and I don't see it. So my next avenue was start your own business. After working for so many companies in corporate America, I wanted to have the title. I worked for corporate America, but it wasn't doing the job. So I went into business and started working, my way up into my business. So my role here for our African immigrant community is to have them have their own business, be independent, because the wages that we're having is not good enough working for someone. I'm not saying don't work for someone, but I'm saying start working for someone, but start thinking about your own business because your own business is independent. So that is the angle in which I look at this. So I just want to say thank you for this office because this office means so much to Minnesota. A lot of states don't have this office. Minnesota is the one progressive state, I believe, in my heart. I've been to Minnesota, I've been in Georgia, I've been in Pennsylvania, that's where I went to school. But this state gives a lot of opportunity to immigrants. And it is important that, Anessa just said, we show up. So with that, I want to say thank you to Anessa. I really want to thank her because sometimes I'm working, I'm doing my own thing, I don't want to show up for meetings. She calls me, Florence, are you going to be in this meeting? So she holds me accountable. So thank you so much. And thank you, Commissioner Grove, for giving this office a chance. And Deputy Commissioner Mike Majors, I think he's so excited about that. And thank you, Abdul, welcome on board. You have a lot to cover. She left a lot of trail. I don't think you...
Thank you. Commissioner Grove, as to your question, I think for me, what immigrants bring to Minnesota is an attitude. I had the privilege, prior to starting the office in St. Paul, which I joined in June of 2019, which I joined in June of 2019, I had the privilege of working as an immigration attorney for almost 25 years here in Minnesota. And one of the things that I learned from my clients was that they brought an attitude to Minnesota where the rest of us saw obstacles, they saw opportunity. And that attitude was absolutely contagious. It helped me as a lawyer, and I was really shocked at how much it helped me as a father. How I really, one of the things I really tried to instill in my three sons was that they see opportunity where there are obstacles, and really have a resilience and always have hope. And I found that in my clients, and I think that's what's really important for the rest of us here in Minnesota in embracing our immigrants, is that they bring hope, they see opportunity, and it's contagious, and it helps the rest of us to be better. And I'm really thankful to have had the opportunity to work with Commissioner Hakim because she always saw opportunity. Even at times when I was feeling dejected, she saw opportunity, and that spirit really helped me, I think, to do a better job the last 2 years that I've had the opportunity to work with her. And I hope that she feels the same way about me, because I know we can all get a little down and dejected and start to gripe. But at the end of those conversations, we always came up with, we have opportunity, and here's what we can do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mundo. Thanks, everyone. Well, Michelle, I'd be curious to go to you next. You, along with Edmundo and several other officials, worked on this report, Journey to Belonging, that kind of talked about the pathway for immigrants, particularly in the metro area. Can you talk a bit about that report and some of the insights that you want to share about Minnesota's immigrant workforce?
Sure, thank you. So to provide some orientation, the Journey to Belonging in the Twin Cities is a report that is the product of engagement with community. to try to identify what are ways in which we can support the inclusion and success of immigrant and refugee residents here in the state of Minnesota. This report, and I have a few copies of it in case people are interested, starts out with a data survey which kind of identifies what are the major populations in the city of Minneapolis and the city of St. Paul. What are the industries in which immigrant and refugee residents work? What are the economic contributions from a tax standpoint? The entrepreneurial activity in our cities, and moves on from there to identify immigrant and refugee inclusion strategies in 4 different areas, including workforce development, civic engagement, safety, and more. This report has served as a tool. It came out earlier this year in April. It really has served as a tool for us to be able to have conversations with organizations and individuals who are working to promote immigrant and refugee inclusion, whether immigrant-led organizations and or organizations that are serving immigrant and refugee residents. And one of the things that I think is important to highlight is how meaningful it is to actually create spaces where people can connect and share their experience and share what they know to be true, whether in community or whether people who are immigration attorneys, refugee resettlement organization leaders. So I think that it's useful to utilize this report as a tool. One of the things that's been very instructive, and Edmundo and I in the City of Minneapolis and City of St. Paul have worked very closely with Anissa Hajimumin, with Assistant Commissioner Hajimumin, in thinking through the objectives of this report and how it could be valuable for community, and thinking about how to create spaces both at the state level as well as at the city level, where people feel comfortable and people feel like they can share the important work that they're doing on a local level. And it's been really remarkable. You know, Anissa says that it was us who started first. I actually think it was you who started first, holding spaces. We started weekly and moved to bi-weekly, and now we're on a monthly schedule where people who are working on immigrant and refugee inclusion have the opportunity to share information about the work that they're doing so that people can learn from each other. And I think one example that I pull out, which is really representative of success, is when more people know what's happening in community, and more people have the opportunity to connect with one another, exciting things happen. So for example, in the city of Minneapolis, with regard to the Afghan community, as we have a significant Afghan community that's resettled to Minneapolis, the city has hired an employment coordinator to work directly with the Afghan community, who is himself an individual who has resettled here in Minnesota from Afghanistan. So it's an excellent example of people who are welcomed being part of the welcoming effort. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about this role that I occupy within the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs in the City of Minneapolis, is actually seeing people who were once welcomed being the welcomers, people who have the lived experience of understanding the challenges of resettling to our city and state, and because they know and recognize those challenges, want to pave the road, want to make it easier for newer evacuees. So whether it's individuals from Somalia or individuals who are Hmong refugees from Laos, welcoming individuals from Afghanistan, individuals from Ukraine, for example, you know, people who have fled under similar circumstances, similar trying circumstances. I think that circle of welcome is really what exemplifies us as a state. Has been very valuable with regard to this report and the information in this report. So I encourage people to read it and have a few copies in case people are interested in picking them up. So thank you.
Let's cross the river to St. Paul, to Edmundo, and I'm curious, maybe 2 questions for you, Edmundo. One, I'd be curious what you think maybe employers may misunderstand about hiring immigrants or recently arrived new Americans. And second, can you tell us a bit more about the New American Loan Program that you've set up at the city and how that's coming along?
I think what employers maybe miss is that they see immigrants and they think, oh, it's going to be really difficult to train, to work with new incomers because they don't speak English, they don't understand the culture, and I think that they find it intimidating. But I think once they start to work with immigrants, they realize that they have this resilience, they have this attitude, and they come in and they want to learn English. They want to learn the culture. They want to really embrace the workplace because it's opportunity, and it is a place where they can move ahead and move their family ahead. And I think once employers understand that and are not intimidated by those obstacles, they embrace immigrant communities and the immigrant workforce. So any employers here, I would really say what I would say to you is, embrace the workforce. Those obstacles can be overcome fairly easily because you have a workforce that wants to overcome those obstacles. And thank you for asking me about the new loan program. In September, last September, the City of St. Paul announced the New American Loan Program in partnership with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union. We created a no-interest loan program for people who wanted to apply for naturalization. And I think it's important for me to kind of explain why we decided to do that. When I was an immigration attorney, I realized what a game-changing event a person becoming a citizen was. It changed everything for them, for their family, and it changes things for communities. So I came into this job understanding how naturalization was so important to immigrants and really wanted to increase opportunities for people to naturalize. When the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul came together and worked on the report for Journey to Belonging, it became very evident the data. I started to see the data that kind of supported the thoughts and feelings I had around my anecdotal experience around naturalization. Immigrants and refugees that naturalize and become U.S. citizens are twice as likely to be homeowners. Their income increases anywhere from $2,200 to $3,200 a year in the first year they naturalize. They can vote, they can sit on juries, they can run for public office, and they begin to impact their communities civically. So we realized we needed to do what we could to help people naturalize. The other thing is naturalization stabilizes individuals. It stabilizes people's families. And in turn, it stabilizes our community. So it has an impact on public safety. There are just so many benefits to a city when people naturalize that it is why in our office it is our priority to naturalize as many of our residents as possible. We learned from our Journey to Belonging that there are over 9,000 permanent residents in the city of St. Paul. If we could get all of those people naturalized, the impact would be significant, not only on our communities, but our tax base, our home ownership rates. So it's very important to us. And we looked at naturalization and saw there was two main barriers. One was learning English, and the other was having the money up front to pay for the naturalization application. So we looked at a couple different ways, and we thought, well, if we do like scholarships, it's a one-time remedy, and we're going to run out of money. So we decided to do a loan program which could renew itself, and it's zero interest. There's a $75 application fee, of which $50 gets returned when you pay the money back, and people can borrow up to $2,000 and have up to 13 months to pay it back. So it's basically for $25 you can borrow $2,000. So it's a great deal.
It's a big deal, and I think a lot of people don't know about this program. So tell your friends. This is a big deal. It's a huge step for St. Paul and something that is really great for our region. Hector, let's go over to you. One of the things that CAPI's doing, and indeed is proud to support you in this work, is helping internationally trained medical professionals find their way into our economy. And I think I mentioned before the story of my mother-in-law who was a nurse and came here and had to navigate her way through Chicago's health system and get a job. You're helping Minnesotans do this. Talk a bit about the work and maybe what hospitals should know that they don't when they're thinking about maybe immigrant workforce at a time of some severe shortages in healthcare.
Thank you, Commissioner Grove, and I think it's a very exciting time. I get very pumped up because, you know, our country is a land of opportunities, and when I say that, Minnesota is also one of them, and it's so exciting to see behind the scenes, you know, leaders are really advocating for refugees and immigrant community, and kind of like how can we make, you know, this report a very new Americans inclusive place where we can live. And I think we have not seen that 20 years ago when I came here, so I'm really excited that there are people who are working behind the scenes. Going back to the grant, I won't be very technical, but you know, I just want to say that my doctor is from India, and my kid's doctor is from Ethiopia. And when I go to the clinic, I feel like I'm not going to a clinic, I'm going to another home. And the relationship my kids have with their physicians and the nurses and doctors is very different, because they really understand the culture, they really understand what's happening, and there is a historical connection there, and you know, there is always that every race has something, especially in the medical field, when you see meeting a doctor, you feel the comfort. So, you know, there is a shortage of labor, as we know, and Commissioner Grove talked about, you know, especially the healthcare. Every time when we are talking to employers and hospitals, there's a huge need. And I think this is an opportunity for our community. I know there's a struggle, like many doctors, many nurses, many medical professionals who come from, you know, other countries, you know, they don't practice the same thing. They have to pick a different job. You know, they may be a doctor in their country, they're working in a gas station, or they're a school teacher, or they're, you know, they don't have a job. And I think this is an opportunity to connect those individuals to organizations like CAPI and many other organizations who receive the grant, so we can, you know, show them the pathway, we can connect them, because we want to make sure those barriers, the system is very complex. You know, if I have to be a doctor, I cannot, because I don't even understand what is the process. But we are working with colleges, we are working with, you know, technical colleges, universities, and C-plans, so we want to make sure the system that's very complex, make it easy. So we'll have staff on board who will work with those individuals. So if they are, you know, professionals, healthcare in their country, and they want to, you know, continue the same job, I think we can help those individuals, we can connect the dots. But we really need the community. I think there's an opportunity, as I see, and I feel like I have a golden, you know, there's a golden egg or golden opportunity, whatever you, the phrase is. I feel like there's a very great opportunity that we have for the refugee immigrant community to tap into it. And I'm excited, and CAPI is excited to work with, you know, diverse communities. And if there are stakeholders and partners who want to partner with us and find those individuals, we'll make it happen. But I'm really excited. And thank you to the Dean and Commissioner and everyone here that making this happen. I think, you know, we were never expecting something like this will happen. I think this is amazing, and it's a great opportunity. So I just want to say thank you so much, and I'm looking forward for more partnership.
Well, Florence, let's come back to you. You know, you've got a couple of organizations you run, but I think most curious in your Business and Tax Solutions organization, which got a grant through Propel to help our workforce and our entrepreneurs in the state. Share your perspectives on what employers should know about immigrant workforce, and also specifically what your organization is doing to help.
Thank you, Commissioner. My organization, Lighthouse Business and Tax Solutions, is catering towards immigrant community. So I do have, the first community that came to me was the Ukrainian community. Because I was in a church where we have a group of them, and they started coming to me, and the reason, because they feel comfortable coming to someone from another country, not from this country, someone who will understand them and read documents, because I'm a tax attorney and I have a business background as well, and accounting background. So they began to come to me, and then that group led to the Russian community, and then led to the Hispanic community, and then, as a matter of fact, then the African community came last. So imagine that. And the reason people come to me, and I'll get to that point with the grant. So the people come to me, they don't really know where to start. I have a business, I'm passionate about something, how do I establish a business? And the reason people came, because they were frustrated in the jobs that they were working at, and they wanted something better. So when they started coming to me, I kind of set them up, and more people started coming. I can't really take more people because a lot of people don't have the funding. So that lead me to my other organization, that is Field of Dreams Empowerment Center. So what I do, I help people under the umbrella of Field of Dreams Empowerment Center, because I don't want to run my business at a loss as well, that I can help. I can use my time, which to help these communities. And it's about capacity building, which is our economic development, help them how to start your business. First of all, a lot of people didn't even have a license or incorporate with the Secretary of State because they didn't know that. They thought, you know, in my country, if I have an idea, I can just put something up and start a business. Not so. So the reason I knew that, because during COVID, when there were grants being issued to a lot of businesses, these businesses didn't have it. And when I started peeling back as to why they didn't have it, I saw that they were not registered with the Secretary of State. And that really broke my heart, because a lot of people were left out. My house was full. Every day my husband go, "We are gonna die of COVID because you keep bringing." So it was just, people kept coming, and I started registering people and channeling them. So I applied for that grant because I wanted to start helping people in the area of capacity building. You have a business, you have an idea, you have a passion. How do I do it right? And not only that, how do I run my business? That is the second part of it. How do I gain a business? How do I have a name? Some people didn't know you need a name. We come up. I take them through the process, because with the immigrant community, you have to walk them through processes. You can't just dump a piece of paper to them, read it. You have to take them step by step. So I started doing that, and more people under that grant, I'm able to help a lot of people that I couldn't take under my business. So that's how it all started, and I plan to do more.
Well, we are grateful for that, and that you survived all that help that you gave the folks. And it's true that a lot of times applying for programs and grants in government is way more complicated than it should be. And one of our aspirations for our continued work is to just to make it easier for immigrants to access resources inside of state government, make that a simpler process than it is. I know that Mariano's got to get his cafeteria back here at some point, but we wanted to take a pause to see if anybody in the audience had a question or two or a comment before we conclude our conversation this morning. Any questions or thoughts from our... Yeah. Ian, will this reach you?
Yes, good morning everybody. My name is Ian Oundo. And yes, for the sake of showing the diversity that we have here today, I'm from Uganda, so I'm very lucky to be here as a new American. Assistant Commissioner Anissa, we're going to miss you. And I know that a lot has been said here today, but the last 2 years that we've worked with you, and we've worked with so many leaders, you have kept us together. And I think people don't realize the work that this lady has done during COVID, when we did not know how to navigate government and do all that. And there's a lot of leaders here today. Assistant Commissioner Anissa did an amazing job to bring us all together today. We're a much stronger group of leaders because of the work that you did. And so I just want to re-emphasize that we're going to miss you for the work that you've done, but we're going to make sure that we continue the work that you've done with the new Assistant Commissioner. My question that I kind of have for both Edmundo and you is with the naturalization loans that you have. Are those directly only for people who live in Minneapolis and St. Paul, or can anybody, regardless of where they are in the state of Minnesota, apply for that? Because I think that is a game changer, and if it's only in St. Paul or Minneapolis, then we definitely want to figure out a way to expand that. Thank you.
Right now, it's only for people in St. Paul, but I know that Right now, it's only for people in St. Paul. I know Minneapolis is considering a similar program, but we would love to see it on a statewide level. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is a credit union that has offices all over the state, and I think would be a great opportunity to have it statewide.
Yeah, but just to answer that question for Minneapolis, Mayor Jacob Fry, in his budget proposal for 2023, has proposed a loan program to cover naturalization filing fees similar to that in St. Paul. So follow that. The City Council does review and consider the budget with the final decision being made in December.
Maybe something we should be thinking about over the next few months for state government. Other questions or comments from our attendees today? Jude, you want to?
Finally to the high table. Thank you, Commissioner Grove, for the opportunity, and my sister Anissa for the work you did. It has been life-changing for all of us, and we'll miss you, but the consolation is that the building you left behind is not going to collapse because you made it so strong, and we're proud about the work you did. So, and Abdul, well, we have a lot to do, and we'll be doing so much. We'll continue the work, and we're there for you. So, for me, I'll start with the report you have. So, I've been part of many reports and surveys and analysis, but once it's done, what comes after is important. And I would suggest, and I also ask, how do we take this report to the community in a way that they will appreciate it and they are going to work with that? Because I can read the report, I can do my own work, but it's not about me or some of us who are here. It's about the community. And for them to participate and be active, I think we need to put some resources, not only about just disseminating information, but how that report is going to impact people and how they can participate. So that's one thing about report. And another thing I want to talk about this Office of New America. We'll be fighting very hard to get this office in place. And we know the budget didn't work the way we wanted. I'm also suggesting, as an immigrant, one thing I learned from typical Americans, if they want to do something, they find creative ways to get things done. So with this office, we are fighting to get some resources from the state. So even if we get the budget of, I think, $450,000, that's mainly to pay the salaries. How about the actual work? One of the challenges Anissa had during her time is being able to execute some programs. So you bring up ideas, you talk to the community, you do everything, but you don't have the resources. So we're talking about immigrants and refugees. And some of us, most of us actually, not only the issues of American challenges, sending our kids to school or paying bill, but also we send things back to Africa, to where we come from, to support the family. So our budget is always constrained. And then without those resources, it's very challenging for us. So when we do something, I'm not even looking at the $450,000 budget, but actually maybe up to $2 million. How do we go beyond the states to go to foundations? Foundations like Bush Foundation, they have hundreds of millions of dollars they spend somewhere. So how do we make that passionate appeal? And how do we come together for them to understand? Because some of them, most of them, they're not immigrants. They don't know what we are passing through. They don't know the challenges we face. So how do we make it a point of duty that this office will have resources not only to pay salaries? I'm a board member, Council for Ministers of African Heritage. It's all about paying salaries. We don't have any executive projects we do. Yes, we do policies. We work with legislatures to do policies and bring some changes. But the community, last 2 years or 3 years, when we didn't have a staff, we were able to share some dollars with the community. If I go back to all the communities, they still remember the $5,000 we brought to them 3 years ago. They don't care about all the policies, even though it's better for them. But I'm just saying we need to understand the people who are working for, their needs, and how to actually make things that will really make sense to them. So long-term policy change, office, short-term resources that they can see, they can believe, and they can work with us. Thank you.
I think that, as you can see, shops are opening, and we don't want to get in between an immigrant entrepreneur and their customers. So I think we'll need to wrap it there. But I do want to recognize a few other folks in state government that are in the room, just so the community knows how many folks here showed up today. We have Michael from MDE, I think, is over here. Michael, you want to say hello? We're blessed to have you all know Lilian Otero from the Department of Ag, working on emerging farmer issues, but a great leader in state government. And Sahil from our team at DEED is there as well in the back. He's been coming on board to help our Afghan community transition through helping in our career force team. So I just want to thank you all again for coming here today. I'm sorry we didn't have the time for everyone's questions. We're thrilled about the path ahead. We cannot do it without partnering between community and state government. A major priority of ours this next legislative session is going to be officializing this office. But thank God we have the ability to pass the torch here today. And we are thrilled to have Assistant Commissioner Mohammed take the reins of this effort. And I'm going to give him the last word as we head into the future of this effort for our state.
Thank you. I'm really excited for the role ahead, for taking this role, and I'm really excited of the work that is waiting for us. My excitement is to do the work. I am excited about hosting the Immigrant and Refugee Forum. This is a place that continues this kind of conversation we are having today. We want this conversation to continue. If you're not in the mailing list, I want to make sure that I know who is attending. We want to discuss these issues that we want to continue this conversation. I'm excited to hosting those roundtables. I'm excited to partner with the governor's office, the councils, Michelle and Edmundo. I'm excited to work with all the community stakeholders that are here today, and those who are not here today. I will reach out to everyone. I want to open this door for this office so that everyone has the opportunity and does not feel left out. I'm excited about welcoming more immigrants and refugees to the state. I'm excited about, as Commissioner has just said, something to look at, the loan program for the naturalization. That's something that will be looking forward to work with you in the communities. I'm excited about coming out to events like these, making sure that every voice is heard and incorporated as we look out to the legislative sessions. We need to do a lot of outreach. Devin is here today, ahead of our outreach for the lead. You may have met all of you, so I'm excited to work with him and with other departments, state agencies, to continue the work that we did. We may have the next 4 months to prioritize few things. We want to do career fair for the immigrant and refugees. These are the kind of projects that I'm excited to do as we continue working to establish this office, and the work will not stop. Anissa has started a good work, and it will continue. I know a lot of immigrants too. There are ways that issues that sometimes we might not get into. For example, in my previous role, I worked as a trade manager, and a lot of the work that I did was, every immigrant has a family back home, and that means an opportunity for here and for back home. When immigrants come here, they make impact in the new society they're in, and also they make impact in the society that they live. And I work with a lot of the communities to have these issues answered, to put them to resources. And I'm glad that I can bring that expertise to also help you, not just in here, but also as you seek to help communities back home. I am open. I want to hear from everyone, and thank you so much for coming today. I'll turn it over to Mr. Joe.
Thanks, everybody. If folks are willing to do a group picture, we thought, since we have to get the chairs out of the way, maybe we can all come up here and take a photo together with Anissa and Abdul.